Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Florida. Now, you got the right night. It's Wednesday night. Unable to do it on Monday because of Labor Day, but Rod Peterson is kind enough to do it here on Wednesday. The Sports Exchange will follow Fire Up Florida. George Eichhorn will be here with myself as well as on the second show as well. Rod is back in Florida. Glad to have you back in the Sunshine State, Rod.
It's great to be here. Even better if we had some sunshine tonight, but it's good to be with you guys and would never miss this show. Obviously, Scott, very special night here, which we'll get into.
Yeah, well, why don't you let everybody know where you are at, actually?
Sure. Hey, George, I'm at a, shall I say, undisclosed location. There's a Stanley Cup party here going on, so I'm waiting to get in. We were supposed to have gotten our photos taken with a Stanley Cup already, but these things don't all go according to plan, as we know. So it's a big party. It's at a downtown Fort Lauderdale restaurant. And a very good friend of mine is Phil Pritchard. You guys might know the keeper of the cup. He's been traveling with a cup for over 30 years. He's here. So we had a good visit. I'm with the crew from Cardinal Gibbons High School football team, the Chiefs. So there's a whole gang here, and they're all excited to meet Aaron Ekblad and get photos with the cup and ask Phil questions. So, hey, first time for everything, man. This Stanley Cup has partied hard in South Florida in the last couple of months.
Well, you'll have an active chat room tonight. Josh Dora, what's going on? This show's going on. Rod with a change of scenery, that's for sure. And obviously, D. Lowe's knows how to spell Rod with a bunch of D's. And I love how Rod always is in a different location. No doubt
I
about
don't.
It. Yeah. Yeah. You may love it. He doesn't. All right. Well, let's go out there and get this show rolling. All right, so when the Panthers hit the ice with the 2024 home opener on October 8th against the Boston Bruins, they'll look a little bit different from the squad which hoisted the Stanley Cup. Garner forwards Vladimir Tarasenko to the Red Wings, Detroit, Ryan Lomberg, Calgary, Kevin Stenlund to Utah, defenseman Brandon Montour goes to Seattle, Oliver Ekman-Larsson to Toronto, Josh Mahura to Seattle, goaltender Anthony Stolarz to Toronto. And then, of course, Bill Zito added forwards Jesper Boqvist, Thomas Nosek, A.J. Greer, along with defenseman Nate Schmidt and Adam Boqvist. So with that said, why don't we go ahead and, Rod, you talked about it. How about summarize every move? Yeah, Josh Adore, Tarasenko went to the Red Wings. I know that breaks your heart, but let's go.
Well, you guys have won a lot more cups there in Detroit, so you can talk to me about changeover with teams. Like, I was adding it up. With Kevin Stenlund, who was a role player here, that makes 8. That's almost half the roster, guys. However, that's in bodies, but it's not financially half the roster. So they still got Tkachuk, Barkov, Reinhart, Sergei Bobrovsky, Aaron Ekblad, who's here tonight. So I think, can we speak about this? Would you agree? If you've got that core group locked down, am I on your Jeep here? Okay, I'm sorry. If you got the core group locked down, I think you're okay. And the rest of the guys around it are bit parts. Or as somebody said to me today, side dishes. As long as you have the main parts there, the side dishes can change. That's, I think, in any league, wouldn't you guys say?
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you're talking about a salary cap era, so you certainly want to keep your core players intact, and you're going to have to fill out the roster. The NFL deals with it all the time. You're going to pay a lot of your top players, and all of a sudden you have to go out there and find other pieces as well just to fill out the roster. It's not like you can do it Mike Ilitch and buy a team or spend a lot of money. This is a much different era than it's ever been, and that's what the Florida Panthers are faced with right now. A lot of additions, and we'll see not as many additions as there are subtractions, but in the end, it's how well they play. And a lot of it's going to have to do with how well Paul Maurice is able to coach them up. So there's a lot of factors involved as well. But again, this is what they're going to be dealing with. So, whatever scorecard you had last year program, it's going to be a bit different this year. Go ahead, George.
Well, yeah, I mean, and referring back to the old days, Scott, you're right on. And that is so true. Rod, when the Red Wings were doing this, when they were winning cups and that sort of thing, no, they didn't lose 6 or 7 guys after every cup. No, because it was a different world and the salary cap era, like Scott alluded to. So now you got a situation where the teams, they just can't keep everybody. And like you said, the important thing is the core. Now, Detroit in that era, of course, had guys like McCarty and Draper and Kosar, and those guys, they wanted them to stay around the third and fourth, the grind line, for example. and they were able to keep them. But it's a totally new world. I agree with you guys. You're not going to be able to do it, but you got to keep as many of those guys as you can and within the salary range that you can, and hope for the best and hope to still contend for the cup the following season. So you enjoy this. The thing I feel sad for is these guys that have left already. Of course, they had a chance to celebrate the cup one day or whatever when it rotates around, but now they're gone. And unfortunately, they're with other organizations. But it's still an outstanding achievement, obviously, for the Panthers.
So, Rod, my question is to you: of all the people that I've mentioned that have departed, which ones do you think will be the biggest? Which will be the biggest impact about where the Panthers are going to miss these guys?
I ran that poll on our Instagram page at Cats and Bolts Podcast, and the fans said Ryan Lomberg, but I think that's just because he was a fan favorite and he was around here quite a while in the way that he plays. It's probably actually Brandon Montour, number 62 on the blue line. He was, in a lot of ways, the quarterback of the power play, along with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Like they have lost a lot of their blue line. Ekman-Larsson's gone to the Leafs. But I want to say it's Brandon Montour, but it's not that he's not replaceable. Like, I'll be honest with you, way back in February, Bill Zito re-upped Gustav Forsling to the bag, as they say. I think it was $8 million deal, and he left Montour to the offseason. I heard whispers that Montour wasn't happy about that. Basically, Forsling was chosen over him to stay. So you can't keep them all. George said it earlier. I mean, it's very interesting. You talk about those 90s wings. You back in the day, guys, you probably had 17, 18 guys back, 19 even maybe,
right,
from a Stanley Cup winner. Now we're talking about half the team's gone. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's a way too long answer. Brandon Montour.
Yeah, but they knew that was coming anyway. So the Panthers are definitely in a win now, and they were able to do that. Candy puts up a lot of these comments up here with Joshua. I'll just start off with Tarasenko. Joshua Dorr, obviously, I guess he has a problem with it because of where George and I are from, and that he ended up taking the trip up I-75 by 19 hours to wind up there. But it is news to him. He says Lombard has a personality, but not on the ice. Okay, well, that's fine. But I'm trying to figure out what that means. I realize toughness is what it is. I agree with you, Rod, on Montour. So, but getting back to my point, so why don't you repeat it one more time? Which one do you think is going to be the impact will be the hardest?
It's Brandon Montour. It's Brandon Montour, but I just want to bring up Tarasenko. Because you got him now, George, in Detroit. So we'll see how that pays off.
Yeah.
Because I've been covering and around the National Hockey League for a long time. And we're just talking tonight about my dad winning a Stanley Cup with Dallas in 1999. I don't think I told you cats that. Tarasenko, my dad was a scout, by the way, so I know how to evaluate players. Right. For years, everybody thought this guy was lazy. That was the book on him. Not that he was a bad guy or a bad teammate, but that he didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
So when the Panthers got him at the trade deadline from Ottawa, I'm like, oh boy, how's this gonna go? But I watched every Panthers game, and I was at all the games.
Well, we lost him. He's remote.
He was at all the games. We hope we can get him back here.
Yeah. Well, all right, we've got him back. All right.
Oh, sorry, guys. What's the last thing you heard?
At a lot of games. You were at.
Oh yeah, I was at all the games. So I watched him. He was on his best behavior for 3 months. So the point is, on a short-term thing, he was on his best. He was back checking. He was working hard. He was going in the corners. All the things I heard he wouldn't do. So maybe the key is on a short-term basis, you want these guys, but not over the long haul. But Tarasenko did win a Stanley Cup with the Blues in 2019. So I think Detroit's I think they got a good player there. But I don't think he's got a bad attitude.
Well, Josh, this is a little stretch, but put it up there anyways, Candy. Tarasenko back to Florida at the deadline when the Wings miss the cup. Please, Josh. I mean, I realize you're.
That's a long shot.
Yeah, Josh, I understand some of your comments are based on passion, but do me a favor, utilize a little common sense about what the deadline is and what their situation is as far as salary goes. So, Josh, I can handle a lot of your comments. Some of them, to me, are just a little bit too far-fetched, especially before the puck even drops for the season. So he left to see the cup, whatever, Josh. Okay, I'm not going to calm down, but I want to make sure that certain points are made. They haven't even dropped the puck yet, and you got the Red Wings missing the playoffs. Do me a favor, Josh. Take a little bit of advice from Aaron Rodgers. Relax, okay? The season hasn't started. I meant miss the playoffs. It's okay, Josh, for us to let you know that I love your passion and all that. Don't need to pinger me over a damn joke. You know what, Josh? Indicate it's a joke and I won't, okay? But it is what it is, Josh, okay? And now Rod is going out there and clapping for me, so you better do your best and find a way to recover from what you just did to yourself. Okay, yeah, I'm calmed down. I got 2 shows tonight. My good, I meant miss the playoffs. Whatever. Okay, anything else you want to add to the Tarasenko thing?
I was just going to say too. I'll interject here. The Red Wings, of course, had good reports on Tarasenko. I mean, I think it's a great addition for them, and I totally disagree. I know Josh says it's a joke. Well, trust me, with Steve Yzerman, you don't joke around. This team was
right.
one. This team was one, almost one period maybe, or one. That close to making the playoffs. Washington beat them out right at the last second. Last game. So all I'm saying is that most experts will tell you Detroit is in the hunt, obviously, not for first place, but for playoff position. So they're expecting good things. But back to you guys and the Panthers again, you can't keep all of them. No, you can't.
Yeah, now that Josh is on a roll, let's go ahead, Candy, and move it up a little bit here. So I want to make sure that we track this guy really good tonight. I love his passion. I like the fact that he's loyal to the show. D-Lowe's, fun fact, D-Lowe's lived in Dallas 99 and watched the Stars win the Cup. Yeah, that's right, they did. Okay, I guess. Okay, Scott needs to get a sense of humor. Man, don't think that would trigger you. Josh, you've known me a long time. Certain comments do trigger me, and I'll never pretend to be otherwise. But Josh, that was the second most idiotic thing I've ever heard you on this network. I think one of them that was worse. So, Josh, do me a favor, get a life, okay? Because obviously you got the Red Wings buried before the puck drops. I realize that we're talking about a Panthers show, but nobody counts a team out of the playoffs before you even hit training camp. Well, except you, okay? And that's it. So if you want to call it a ball buster, call it a ball buster. That's Joshua Door language, okay? Here we are. I'm supposed to make sure that I keep my voice intact, and it's fine. It's as even keel it needs to be with this type of stuff. Now watch. He may have to retreat for cover, okay, because now he's in a deep hole. So, Rebecca, you better save Josh from himself. And I love you, Rebecca and Asher, but let's move on to the next subject here, and we can go from there. D-Lowe's has got Joshua in check, okay? And that's what we're not talking chess. We're just talking check here on the show. With that said, now that I've said my piece, let's go to a station break, and we'll go on to the final 2 topics of the night. Go ahead, Candy.
You are listening to the South Florida Tribune. We are coming to you live tonight. If you like podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, we're there. The South Florida Tribune also published a book last November. It is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by none other than Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword is written by George Eichhorn. It is available on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Apple and Google Books. You can find a link to it also on www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can also find a link to our apparel store. There's also great articles written by Scott, Rod, and George. They all write. I take pictures. Go check us out. Back to the station.
All right, well, here, I like what Joshua says. I'm done with this. I'll stick to cats and bulls. That's okay, Josh. Okay, because here's my thing. Okay, Rod and I come as a team. So if you're going to meet him, right, Rod, he has to do it with us both together, right? It's not just going to be you because we are a team. The problem with Josh is he can't take it, but he can dish it out. He's done it so many times, and all of a sudden, he looks like a weak sister because he dishes it out and he can't take it. There's no Jacob Christner to kick around tonight. He can't kick me around. This guy here can make certain statements, And you know what? The bottom line is I can't handle it. Scott's beating me up. Please don't beat me up. Okay. The problem with you is you are so offended over nothing. No, I don't. Josh, am I offended over nothing, Rod or George? What do you
No.
I
think?
say let's move on. That's what I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I think we're going to move on, but I'm not making a fool out of yourself. I'm making a fool out of you, okay? Because you put these things in the chat room and they're on there for record. So it's okay, Joshua. It is what it is. But hey, Rod, the one thing I've done, and George and I know this, because when we were dealing with radio back in the day, if we ran into a caller that was out of control, what did we used to do, George? We used to click the button, get rid of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Josh is reminding me of the good old days in the FCC, but he's getting rid of himself. He's looked all day, and I don't think he ever thought he would get Mike Tyson and Peter McNeely tonight. That's for sure, because that was a quick knockout. All because he thought the Red Wings would miss the playoffs before the puck even started, and training camp hasn't even had. If that isn't stupid, I don't know how much stupider you get. All right, well, we're going to go back to the past a little bit, and this is a really, really good story. Okay. Did you know that 53 years ago that Bobby Orr signed the NHL's first $1 million contract? Orr was coming off a league record 139-point season in the first year of the deal. Orr won the Norris, the Hart, Conn Smythe, and Stanley Cup. The contract was a 5-year deal worth $200,000 per year. Now, Josh, I'm not out of control. I think the bottom line is everybody around the world knows that this is not out of control. And I think you better back off, Josh, before I make you look worse. So you better quit while you're ahead. Okay, because I'm on the air. You're out in the chat room trying to defend what you've already done. Back to Bobby Orr. Unquestionably one of the greatest defensemen on the planet. Okay. So what are your thoughts about Bobby Orr? I always wanted to talk about Bobby Orr, but think about it, okay? A 5-year, $200,000 contract worth $1 million. And look what these guys are getting. I mean, now it's unbelievable. Gotta love Bobby Orr and those moves that he made, part of the original six. So go ahead, Rod. Everybody knows how good Mr. Bobby Orr is.
Well, I'll tell you what's really astounding. I was born in 1972, so that was right in the prime of Bobby's career. I honestly can't say I watched him live. What I know is that his career was cut short. So one thing my parents always talked about was what could have been. But if you're talking about the Mount Rushmore of the National Hockey League, it's Gordon Howe, Robert Gordon Orr, Wayne Gretzky, and then the fourth is, I don't know, maybe that's yet to be decided. I kind of like to think Sidney Crosby, although, Alex Ovechkin, if he catches Gretzky for the goals record, who knows? But Bobby Orr, as you know, lives down here, or at least I've been told that, in South Florida, West Palm area. I'm hoping to run into him at American Bank Arena. To have a defenseman in the conversation as the greatest hockey player ever says how good he was. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, this guy was an offensive defenseman. He's the one that go up there and set the standard for guys like Nicholas Lindstrom and a lot of these guys that can carry the puck over the blue line is what you really have. And Bobby Orr, everybody knows that he's known for that goal that he hit out of midair. I mean, those Boston teams back in the 70s were just unbelievable teams. They really, really were. And obviously, I think Bobby Orr is one of those guys that you can play anywhere. I tell you one thing, though. I think it would be very difficult to come up with a Mount Rushmore of the National Hockey League as I normally would the NBA, because these, especially the NHL, because it's been around so long. How do you pick 4 players for the league that's been over 100 years, okay, to come up? I mean, everybody's going to do it. It's a subjective list anyway, so there's no way I don't think you can be wrong. But Bobby Orr, think about it. You talk about underpaid. My goodness, 5 years, $200,000.
Oh, guys, I'm going in to get the picture. Can I roll? Gotta go.
All right. Well, you know what? Yeah, George and I will take it from there. Thanks a lot for being here, Rod. We'll see you on Monday night.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Have a good time.
We'll see you on Monday. All right. Well, anyway, George, you and I can go ahead and finish it off here. I'm glad that he was able to be a part of these 2 segments.
And being as old as I am, I do remember Bobby Orr, but just vaguely. I mean, when the Red Wings played, obviously the Bruins in the old Olympia Stadium. But this guy, like you said, he revolutionized the game. I mean, Scott, we didn't have defensemen like that, tally that many goals and rack up that many assists and have that kind of wicked shot. I mean, Bobby Orr was just fantastic. I do agree. I do agree with you, and I'm not prepared tonight to name my four. The Mount Rushmore of hockey, like you said, that's a very tough. That's I need a little bit more time to think of that one. But going ahead with Bobby Orr in that great picture of him, that flying through the air with that winning goal on the cover of Sports Illustrated. No one in hockey, any hockey lover, is going to always remember that picture, even if you weren't alive then. I mean, look back in the archives and you'll see it in the Hockey Hall of Fame, of course. But yeah, Orr was unbelievable. That's amazing that he's that first contract, like you said, for $1 million 50 plus years ago.
Yeah, Candy Emily's going to go ahead and pinch hit for Rod. What we're going to do on that final topic, though, hold on. Wait, Candy. On that final topic with Johnny Gaudreau, we're going to hold that over for Rod to comment on Monday, so he has an opportunity. But right now, the guy got an opportunity to go out there and do what he's got to do. I'm glad he was able to chime in on those particular subjects. All right, go ahead, Candy.
I don't know. The greatest ones, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Orr, and Gordie Howe. Would that be your Mount Rushmore?
Mario deserves a lot of consideration. I'm not no argument with the other three for me.
Well, all right, say him again, Candy.
Mario Lemieux.
Okay.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, okay.
Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe.
Yeah, you know what? I'd have a hard time arguing against that. And I'll tell you why I would put Mario Lemieux in the conversation, because Pittsburgh was a train wreck when he got there, and he saved that team from moving is what he did, and butted in financial straits is what he did. Dire financial. Yeah. You know what, Candy? I think that would be a great Mount Rushmore. I really do. And I think it's not only what Mario Lemieux did on the ice, it's what he did off the ice to save the franchise in Pittsburgh.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I mean, yeah.
If I had to,
it's so close between, as far as talent goes, with Ovechkin, Lemieux, and Crosby. I mean, those would be other choices I'd have for the fourth slot. But no, I would not. I would take Mario Lemieux in a heartbeat on my team. Heck yeah.
Yeah. Again, what decides it for me though is the fact that Lemieux saved the Penguins in Pittsburgh, and in addition to the numbers he put on the ice.
Yeah.
So, that's interesting. We're going to, again, we'll talk. Maybe I'll come up with a Mount Rushmore. We'll think about that on Monday. I know we're going to have a lot of other great topics. And I do want to make sure that Johnny Gaudreau will have an opportunity to run that by Rod. Right now, I'm just glad he was able to spend a few minutes with us tonight here on Fire Up Florida. Just, immediately after Fire Up Florida, we're going to have the Sports Exchange. Myself, Candy, George, and JB Ellis will join the crew as well. All right, the final topic of the night, and again, one that I wish I did not have to go ahead and talk about, but the accused drunk driver in the tragic crash that killed Blue Jackets Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew worked at a rehab center. Sean Higgins, 43, is an employee of Gaudreau, a nonprofit drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center whose corporate headquarters is in Norristown, Pennsylvania. He's charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide after he struck and killed the brothers on bikes from behind while trying to pass the 2 vehicles as they were in town, actually, for their sister's wedding. Unfortunately, that was canceled on Friday. So with that said, Higgins told police that he had 5 or 6 beers, then failed a series of sobriety tests. So my question is to both of you, is this. What would be the appropriate punishment for him? Candy, we'll start off with you.
It's tough because I'd like to say throw the book at him, because we have talked for so many years about don't drink and drive. Right. Don't drink and get behind the wheel of a vehicle. There's so many other things you could do. You can Uber, you can call a taxi cab, you can call friends, but in the same breath, most people are going to argue when is that point that they're too drunk or can't handle, or, I'm sure when he got in the car, he's probably, I can do this. I've done this for, how many times, and I didn't have that many drinks. I'm really not that drunk. But the reality is, if you have more than one or two, that you shouldn't be behind a car. You should not be behind a wheel. You should have a designated driver, have somebody. I don't know if he was out with friends. I don't know if the bartender would have realized how drunk he was, but I mean, your reaction time is not quick. I don't care. I mean, let's face it. We've seen how many people are texting or on their phones, and he could have been on his phone as well. You can't do those things when you're driving. Unless you're in a car that drives it yourself, you can't do those things. And you run the risk. And here he took 2 lives way too soon. Way too soon. I feel horrible for the family. I feel horrible for the sister who had a wedding plan and was going to, would have been such a happy occasion. I mean, I hate to say this, the family was probably all together for the wedding, and here now they've got it. They have 2 funerals. That's just horrific. Yeah, I don't know what is enough for him, because I don't know what would be enough to teach him a lesson. I had a friend whose mother was killed by a drunk driver, and it was his 5th offense of drunk driving. Like, we've got to have a stiff penalty, because people have to realize that they can't do this. They can't do. There's so many other things you could have called, like I said, an Uber, a friend. I mean, it's got to be a very stiff. I think, especially because it took 2 lives.
Okay.
It has to be stiff. It has to be stiff. We have to start really giving a penalty so that people stop doing this. There's no reason for drunk driving anymore.
Okay, fair enough. George, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I agree with what Candy said. I mean, this was no way to drive home. I mean, first of all, the pictures I saw, that road was pretty narrow. And so if you've got 2 guys on a bike path next to this car that he was trying to pass, it's very, very difficult to pass cars on those narrow roads. I'm really leery of doing it, and I've been driving for 60 plus years. So 50 plus years, I'm sorry. But anyways, it's just a shame, and it's really sad. My heart says he needs to stay in jail quite a few years. I'd say at least 20. And again, I'm not no lawyer here or a judge or an expert in the judicial system, but this guy needs to get behind bars and stay for a long time. What he did was just irresponsible and totally hurt his family forever. And like you said, Candy, the family wedding, everybody was like together. I'm sure the wedding was going to be the next day in Philadelphia, I guess. I heard, or a suburb of Philadelphia. And, his daughter had to cancel, his sister had to cancel that. Young families, they have, it's just horrible. It is really horrible. And, the thing is that there's just been outpouring of love, outpouring of support, obviously, for the Blue Jackets and for their family and their team. And obviously he had a great career in Calgary, as we know. So, Scott, I mean, literally, this guy's got to have the book thrown at him.
Okay. Well, here, I'm glad you 2 went first, okay? Because I'm not going to be as nice as you guys, okay? Number one, I still don't believe in self-driving cars, no matter whether or not people want to tell me that they're good, they have this. I don't even care. I'm driving it myself. I can drive, in my opinion, a vehicle better than a self-driving car at 60% until I'm convinced of the technology. Now, I know some of these other people out there might say, there's nothing wrong with them. Go ahead and look at them, blah, blah, blah. Hey, to each his own. I'm not sold on self-driving vehicles, and I'm not getting one, period. And if I'm forced to change my position, so be it. But right now, as of September 4th, 2024, I'm not getting a self-driving vehicle. With that said, you have Uber, you have Lyft. I'm sure there's a lot of other ride-sharing assisted places he could have gone there. But you know what? Remember, we live in a state where there is a death penalty and capital punishment. This guy didn't kill 1, he killed 2. And I've always said killing 1 should be the death penalty, but when you get 2 for the price of 1, this way under a DUI, there's no doubt in my mind that, to me, Sean Higgins deserves a death penalty, period. The death penalty, capital punishment. And that's what I think. And it's a shame because you know what? the Columbus Blue Jackets. It would be a shame with any organization that had to experience this trauma. It really is. But there's an organization trying to turn it around, and they haven't been able to turn around. Now you take away their marquee player. But it's not about the player, like you guys said. It's about the families, the kids. It's everybody that's affected, the organizations. And to see these two guys taken way too early, to me, is something that's just unfathomable. And they, again, mind you, they went in there. They were in town for the sister's wedding. But I'll be curious to get Rod's take on this. And we will bring this back, George. You'll be on Monday night as well for this particular show. And we'll be able to get Rod's opinion on it. Obviously, he is in a special place tonight. I'm glad. I hope he can soak it all in. I'm glad he's back in Florida. But he will talk about that, and we'll give him a little more time on or as well as some of the other things I'm going to come up with. But capital punishment, death penalty, that's where it has to go. Any closing thoughts about this show here? Obviously, we have some really good topics lined up for the sports exchange, but
and like you said, Scott, I mean, on the eve of training camp, on the eve of what is more or less a joyful period in hockey, because you're exciting, you're going to camp, you're just like any sport. All the fans are pumped up, excited, and it's just so sad that something devastating like this. And it's not just hockey. It's just not the NHL. It's people's lives, and it's people that were taken away from us and they shouldn't have been because of this knucklehead and getting on the road when he shouldn't have been. And it's just sickening. It is. But we'll talk more, we'll get Rod's opinion too, like you said, on Monday. But it is a good time for hockey right now in general because the teams will start going into camp very soon. We're kicking off the football season, but now we're also talking hockey already because September is that time of year.
It is. I mean, and kudos to the Florida Panthers. Like they're still reveling in this whole Stanley Cup winners. But there's a reason we play the game, and so it's going to be the start of the season. Everybody has a chance to make the playoffs. Everybody starts 0-0. Good luck to everybody. I mean, like you said, it's the eve of training camp.
Yeah, by the way, Rod just sent me a text message of him with the Stanley Cup. So, Candy, we'll make sure that you try to get it on Monday's show so that everybody out there can see it as well. But meanwhile, pretty good topics. We're going to talk about Bobby Orr, and I'm going to add one or two more to make it a little bit more beefy on Monday. I'm just glad that we were able to get a show in here this week under a very condensed week. And, my objective here as a broadcaster is to be objective. And the one thing I've learned covering spring training, as well as a lot of preseasons with any sport, is you don't talk trade deadline, before you even start the season. And if this guy thinks I'm piling on, get over it, man. I don't care if I'm talking about it later, but because we want to keep things in good spirit here. We really do. The Florida Panthers have their hands full because now they're going to be the hunted, and they've lost a lot of players, but the thing they've got going for them is they have a general manager that's like Einstein. Bill Zito reminds me of Ken Holland in his prime. These great general managers always find a way to make the right deals at the right time. But in Bill Zito's case, here's a guy that's inherited an organization that was dormant for a long, long time and changed the culture of it. I mean, geez, Pete, they fired Gerard Gallant off an airplane is what they did and made him fly back on his own. And the list goes on and on and on. So in retrospect, they've made a lot of changes, but now it'll be up to Paul Maurice to try to put it all together. And I'm sure he will. He's an excellent coach. And, let's face the reality. He tried to make a lot out of nothing in Winnipeg and certainly took the Carolina Panthers to the Stanley Cup finals, when they lost to the Red Wings. But all in all, I think we probably did all right. But I'll tell you what, I'm not one to judge or be critical of what we do here. All I can do is prepare the shows, make sure all the facts are there, and give everybody on the crew an opportunity to be objective and speak their mind in the most passionate way possible. And that's what we're certainly looking to do tonight. So, yes, Rod, if you're listening out there, a lot of what we have tonight you'll have a crack at it on Monday. So enjoy your time out there as well. So, Candy, why don't you go ahead and give us one more station break? We'll wrap it up, and we're going to get ready to go to the Sports Exchange shortly.
So the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book last November. It is called Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by Scott, Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, your host tonight, and George wrote the foreword. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. There is also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Scott writes articles, George writes articles, Rod writes articles. Go see all of them. George recently wrote a Lions preview. Rod wrote about NHL. And Scott, your last article, what was it regarding?
We're writing about the Miami Marlins, but I'll be doing a lot. I have one or two more Marlins stories left. And of course, we're getting deep in the Miami Hurricane. So we got a lot of stuff as well.
So yes, if you see that red subscribe button, click it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. We have all kinds of great content on our YouTube. Monday nights is typically where you'd find this show, Fire Up Florida. And then later on Monday nights, you'll see 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Tuesday nights is Inside the Pigskin. So we're talking football, all kinds of football. Wednesday nights is Sports Exchange, where you never know what we're going to be talking about, but typically sport related. And then Thursday night, we have Fire Up, which is the first installment of the Fire Up series. And we talk about anything and everything. You just never know. That show is hosted by me. Tuesday nights, you can also find me on Chicks and Salsa, where us chicks are talking sports. This last week, we previewed the NFL season and which teams we thought were going to take which division. You can always email us if you have any show ideas, southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you'd like to advertise or sponsor a show, you can call Scott 954-304-4941. If you missed any of that, it's all been scrolling on the bottom. But again, go check out our YouTube channel. If you like Miami Hurricanes, we actually have some hurricane videos from after the Gators game. We have press conferences from the Hurricanes. We have all the shows I listed earlier. Go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, we're there. But go get Scott's book. It talks about his 40 plus years in the business, and he tells all kinds of good stories. So go get your copy today. See how media has changed over his 40 plus years in the business. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Well, actually, back to George Eichhorn. Let everybody know how they get a hold of your get your book.
Candy explained. I'm a writer also for the South Florida Tribune on the Motor City Tribune page. And in that column of mine, the article, if you will, you can go down to the end of it, and you'll see a link to the book that you see over my shoulder here, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, where we chronicle over 50 years of great sportscasting from way back in Ty Tyson days and Bob Ufer, and all the way up to George Blaha and Frank Beckman and Brad Galley and all the great people we have on the air, Dan Miller included. So, Scott's in the book because Scott and I got our start in Detroit on a show called Sports Talk with Ron Cameron. And then we also founded the Sports Exchange. So it's really a good read. You can read me also on locally in the Detroit Monitor, but also you can, follow me on X at SandG Sports 99 and also on LinkedIn. And I'm frequently on Twitter as well. And also don't forget, just email me if you want. You got a program idea topic, send it my way, gicorn@yahoo.com. So always glad to be part of this show, 108 Stitches, and I have a great time with this crew. You guys do a fantastic job at the network.
All right, well, that does it for Fire Up Florida here on Thursday night, September 4th. Rod will be back with us, hopefully in its full entirety on Monday night. Meanwhile, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We appreciate the participation in the chat room when we had it, okay? But, again, George and I have always tried to pride ourselves about doing is just making sure that everything that we go out there, we try to just keep it fair and real. And, we don't have to apologize for being professionals, and we never will we, George?
No, not at all.
All right, so with that said, coming up At the top of the hour, we have the Sports Exchange with myself, George, Candy, and JB Ellis. So on behalf of Rod Peterson, George Eichhorn, Candy Ebley, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Florida, and we'll be back to our normal day on Monday night. Have a great weekend, everybody. Good night.
Bye-bye.